All right, so March 17th rolls around.
Yeah.
And you know what everyone thinks about, right?
Oh, I know exactly.
The green, the parades,
Parties.
maybe a festive gathering or two.
Maybe more than one.
It's St. Patrick's Day, a day pretty much everyone knows about.
It really is. It's one of those holidays that just feels like it's always been there.
Right.
Even if you don't have Irish roots, you know what it is.
Yeah, I think so.
But we want to go a little deeper for our listener today.
Yeah, beyond the shamrocks, beyond the green beer.
Exactly, beyond the surface level stuff.
Let's get into the religious and the cultural roots.
The really fascinating stuff.
That's how this day came to be.
Yeah.
Now, you probably already know a thing or two about St. Patrick's Day.
Of course.
But we dug up a bunch of information for you.
Oh, yeah.
Some historical accounts, cultural analyses.
We found some really surprising things.
To give you a much more complete understanding.
Yeah, so much more than just green beer.
We're on a mission to uncover the real story.
Like, think of it this way. You see the green frosting on the cake, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to show you all those layers underneath.
All the good stuff.
We'll look at how it started, how it's changed over time.
And why it's so important to so many people.
Across the entire globe, really.
So to really kick things off, let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
The man himself, St. Patrick.
Yeah.
For you, what's the story behind the holiday beyond just the name?
Well, one really fascinating thing, and this might surprise some listeners.
Okay.
St. Patrick wasn't actually Irish.
Really?
Yeah, he was born in Roman Britain way back in the late 4th century.
Huh.
And his first trip to Ireland was not a happy one.
Yeah, the sources we found really highlight that kidnapped at 16, taken to Ireland as a slave.
It's a rough start to his story.
Yeah, that's a pretty dramatic beginning.
It is. He spent years as a captive before he finally got free and went back to Britain.
I can't imagine.
But, and this is where things get interesting.
Okay.
He chose to go back to Ireland.
Right.
Yeah, this time as a missionary.
Interesting.
And that was his big role. He converted so many people to Christianity back in the 5th century.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Someone's a slave in a place.
Right.
And then they end up becoming this major religious figure.
Yeah, that is quite the story.
Yeah.
And March 17th, the date we celebrate.
Right.
For you, that's the day he died, way back in 461 AD.
That's the traditional date, yeah.
And beyond the history, there's the legend, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The first thing that comes to mind for most people is the shamrock.
Of course, the three-leaf clover.
Yeah, you see it everywhere on St. Patrick's Day.
Every...
Tradition has it that he used it to explain the Holy Trinity.
Okay, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. He was able to take this complex theological concept
Right.
and make it relatable to people
Yeah.
by using something they saw every day.
A really clever way to teach something difficult.
It was. And it showed how well he understood the local culture.
And then there's the other famous story about the snakes.
You mean him getting rid of all the snakes in Ireland?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's a good story.
It is.
Geologically speaking, Ireland never actually had snakes.
Oh.
Most people think that it's really a metaphor
Oh.
for St. Patrick getting rid of paganism.
Ah, so driving out beliefs that weren't Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more symbolic than literal.
So for you, it's more about the bigger picture of changing beliefs.
Right.
That's pretty interesting.
It is.
So now we've got a good idea of who St. Patrick was.
Yeah.
But how did we get from this guy to the holiday we know today?
What started as a religious thing, right?
Okay. A day to remember him?
It was a feast day for the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And then in the early 17th century, it became an official feast day.
So it was really solidified in the religious calendar.
Exactly.
What were the celebrations like back then in Ireland?
Oh, they were a lot different back then.
Yeah, I can't picture it being these big parades.
No, not at all. It was all about the religious side of things. Church services and family feasts.
Sounds pretty low-key.
It was a much more serious event than it is now.
Okay.
But here's something you might find interesting.
Okay.
All the restrictions on eating and drinking during Lent were lifted for the day.
Oh, so people could have a break from abstaining.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that explains why it became associated with big feasts and, well, celebration.
Exactly.
So, okay, think about St. Patrick's Day parades.
Okay, I'm thinking about them.
Where do you think the very first one was?
Well, if you asked me before we did all this research,
Yeah.
I would say Dublin, no question.
Right, it just makes sense.
It seems obvious.
Yeah.
But the first parade wasn't in Ireland at all.
Really?
It was in New York City.
What, New York?
Yeah, in 1762.
That is unexpected.
It is.
So not Ireland, but New York? Who put that together?
It was a group of Irish soldiers serving in the British Army.
Huh.
It was their way of connecting with their heritage.
Oh, okay.
Celebrating their patron saint even though they were so far from home.
So the St. Patrick's Day we see today didn't just come from Ireland.
No.
It was really shaped by what Irish communities were doing in other parts of the world.
Yeah, that's a really important thing to remember.
It really changes how you think about these holidays.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in what we see around us now. We forget that these things have their own histories and evolutions.
Absolutely.
The iconic parade didn't even start in Ireland. It's fascinating.
It really is.
And it shows how much those Irish immigrants, those who had left Ireland, shaped how the day is celebrated.
Yeah, the Irish diaspora.
The diaspora.
As they moved to places like the U.S., Canada, Australia, the U.K., they took their traditions with them.
And St. Patrick's Day, it became more than just a religious holiday.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It became a way for those communities to show their pride in their heritage and their identity.
They let them keep that connection to their roots alive.
Yeah, and it gave them a way to show their presence.
Absolutely. They could celebrate their shared identity.
Even in their new homes.
Right, which is why you see these huge celebrations in places with big Irish populations.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
It's a way to keep that connection alive.
Across generations and continents.
Exactly.
People might have Irish heritage, but have never even been to Ireland.
Right.
And that shift from those early religious observances to the parades and the festivals.
It really happened in those communities all over the world.
Makes sense.
Parades especially became this really powerful way for them to show their identity.
And to be part of the culture of their new homes.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the symbols we see everywhere on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
We talked about the shamrock and its religious meaning.
Yeah.
But it's become much more than that.
It has. It's become this symbol of Irish heritage itself.
Okay.
It represents luck and pride and the whole island of Ireland.
Yeah, you see it everywhere.
Everywhere. Clothes decorations.
And of course, the color green.
Oh, yeah.
It's like green equals St. Patrick's Day for a lot of people.
It really is. It comes from a few places.
Okay.
In Irish folklore, green is associated with luck.
Right.
And, of course, those leprechauns we'll talk about later.
Oh, right, of course.
And then you've got Ireland's nickname, the Emerald Isle.
Right, because of its beautiful green landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's a fun fact.
Okay, I love fun facts.
Blue was actually the color that was first associated with St. Patrick.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But over time, green took over.
Huh.
It was probably because of the connections we just talked about.
Okay. The luck, the landscape.
And its connection to Irish nationalism.
I had no idea.
It's interesting how these things change over time.
It really is.
So the green we see everywhere today wasn't always the main color.
That's a great little piece of trivia.
It is.
Speaking of interesting figures.
Ah, yes.
Leprechauns.
Yeah, you see them everywhere on St. Patrick's Day.
Everywhere.
Those little guys are all over the place.
They really are. They're like the mascot of the holiday almost.
Yeah, and they come from Irish folklore.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not just a modern invention.
No, they're these solitary, fairy-like creatures.
And they're known for being tricky.
Yeah. Always up to something.
And they guard pots of gold at the end of the rainbow.
That's the image everyone has.
The classic leprechaun.
Right. But while they come from folklore, the way we see them today is pretty cartoonish.
Right.
And they've become this big commercialized thing.
Like anything popular, really.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we've talked about the origins and the symbols.
Yeah.
Now let's take a trip around the world.
Okay.
And see how different places celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Sounds fun.
We know Dublin has a huge festival.
Oh, yeah. The St. Patrick's Festival in Dublin is massive.
It is.
A huge parade that draws tons of people.
Wow.
And they have cultural events all over showcasing Irish arts and traditions.
It sounds amazing.
It is. And it's not just Dublin.
Oh, right.
All across Ireland, there are parades, concerts with traditional Irish music.
The Sealids.
Yeah, and all sorts of festivities.
And we already mentioned New York's parade.
The one that goes all the way back to 1762.
Yeah. One of the oldest and biggest.
Showing how long the Irish community has been a part of New York City.
That's a long time.
And then there's Chicago, with a pretty unique tradition.
Oh, yeah. The river. The Green River.
They dye the whole Chicago River green.
Yeah. That's a pretty amazing sight.
It is. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen pictures and videos.
It's a pretty iconic visual.
Definitely.
Canada has some strong Irish roots, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Montreal has a long-running parade.
It does. It started way back in 1824.
Wow.
Showing the deep connections between Ireland and Canada.
It goes way back.
It does.
And going even further away, Australia also celebrates.
They do.
Yeah.
Places like Sydney and Melbourne have their own celebrations,
Oh.
often with Irish music festivals and, of course, parades.
So it's not just English-speaking countries.
Nope.
Buenos Aires in Argentina has a big celebration
Yeah,
too,
it's one of the largest in South America.
and that's a long way from Ireland.
It is. But Buenos Aires has a big Irish community.
Okay, so they've kept those traditions alive.
And this one might surprise some listeners.
Okay, let's hear it.
Tokyo, Japan.
Really?
They have a St. Patrick's Day parade, too.
Wow, that's amazing.
Irish culture in a place you wouldn't expect.
It shows just how global this holiday has become.
From a religious feast day in Ireland to a worldwide celebration.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And of course, we can't talk about modern St. Patrick's Day without mentioning the commercial side of things.
Oh yeah, it's a huge business.
It really is. You see it everywhere.
Everywhere, brands using green and shamrocks in their ads.
It's a big deal for retail, food, and drink.
And tourism.
It's a whole industry.
It is.
But it's not just about selling stuff.
No, not at all.
It also promotes Irish culture all over the world.
Yeah, it gives people a chance to experience Irish music, dance, and traditions.
And that's important.
It is. It helps people understand and appreciate Irish culture.
Even if they don't have Irish roots.
Exactly.
But this evolution hasn't been without its issues.
Right. There are definitely some things to think about.
Like, has the holiday lost its religious meaning for a lot of people?
Yeah, that's a good question.
For many people, it's more about partying and getting together.
Yeah, the focus isn't so much on the religious aspect anymore.
And some people feel like that takes away from the original meaning.
They do.
And there's the issue of stereotypes.
Right. The way Irish people are portrayed, especially around drinking.
Yeah, it can be harmful and not accurate.
And some Irish communities have spoken out about it.
Yeah. It's important to be aware of those things.
It is.
And it sounds like there's a move to make St. Patrick's Day more inclusive in Ireland itself.
Definitely. Ireland is a diverse place now.
Right.
And people want to make sure the celebrations reflect that.
It makes sense.
It does.
And we can't forget the economic impact.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Tourism must get a big boost from St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, yeah. In Ireland, it's a major contributor to the economy.
And for cities with big celebrations.
They see a surge in tourism, too.
It helps a lot of businesses.
Definitely.
And it's important to be mindful of the environmental impact of these big celebrations.
Yes. Like with any big event, there's waste from parades and festivals.
Right.
And things like dyeing the rivers.
It's something to think about.
It is. People are starting to talk more about sustainability and being more eco-friendly.
That's a good thing.
It is.
So St. Patrick's Day, it's much more than just wearing green and going to a parade.
Oh, yeah, it's way more than that.
It has this amazing history.
A deep and complex history.
And it's become this worldwide expression of Irish culture.
An Irish identity.
And we've learned that some of the most well-known traditions have pretty surprising beginnings.
That's right. It's not just about St. Patrick himself.
Okay.
It's about the impact the Irish diaspora has had all over the world.
The way they brought their traditions with them.
And kept them alive.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
It is.
This deep dive has definitely changed how I see this holiday.
It's a reminder that these celebrations have so much more to them than we might realize.
It makes you wonder.
It does. You know, think about how understanding the history and global reach of St. Patrick's Day might change how you see other cultural celebrations.
That's a good point.
Take some time to explore the history of other patron saint days.
Yeah.
Or how diasporas have affected traditions around the world.
There's so much to learn.
It can really change your perspective.
Some really interesting things to explore.
They are.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the surprising story of St. Patrick's Day.
It was my pleasure.